Hello there, you're on the JoyNews channel, coming to you live from our studios here in Accra. This is The Pulse. Coming up this afternoon, government's budget statement and economic policy for the 2023 fiscal year approved by Parliament after days of stiff opposition, with some NPP members of Parliament asking President Akufo-Addo to dismiss Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. Also this afternoon, Minister for Justice and Attorney General cautions Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta against the passage of any form of legislation that will enforce government's debt exchange program in the wake of growing opposition to government's debt and austerity plan. We'll get you the details of the Attorney General's opinion. And why is President Akufo-Addo having a difficulty in reshuffling his ministers in the wake of an economic crisis? His predecessor, John Agyekum Kufuor, of course, says the president must have courage to reshuffle his ministers.
I didn't reshuffle just for the frequency of it. No. Any shifts I made, like I mentioned, Mrs. Asma, I liked her so much. May she rest in peace. And she helped me so much when I was canvassing to become president.
Well, there's more from the former president here on The Pulse. The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Global Communities Dignilu, Affordable Safe Sanitation. Don't forget that we're also live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 144. We're streaming live on YouTube and all of our social media handles. It's at Joy News on TV. Be my guest. This is Joy News, independent, fearless, and credible journalism. I'm Blessed Sogah. Thanks for choosing The Pulse. We're back shortly. And this afternoon, the controversy unfolds. Minister for Justice and Attorney General Godfrey Aboadame is asking Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta not to impose any form of limitation on pre-existing bond or domestic bondholders that will adversely affect the personal rights and liberties of any of the parties to the bond agreement beyond their will. Now, government recently announced a debt exchange program that seeks to defer payments on interest on investments up until 2027. Initial impression that was created, of course, by the finance minister together with government communicators was that the latest debt exchange program will be voluntary. However, Deputy Finance Minister John Kumar revealed on PM Express last night that domestic bond holders may be on their own if they do not sign up to the debt exchange program.
This is a voluntary debt exchange. What does that mean?
Okay, so let's take two countries like Jamaica and Greece. Jamaica did a voluntary debt exchange like what we are doing in Ghana. It means that it's not compulsory. You choose to take the alternative of the exchange, or you remain with what you want, with what you have, and then maybe you go along with the consequences that come along with it. And Jamaica achieved about 99% participation.
Okay.
Greece went with the legal or legislative, which is the coercive approach. And, it also had impact, not as positive as, but in the end, they both achieved debt sustainability. What the voluntary allows is more engagement and collaboration, amicable and a more orderly way of executing this debt structural operation, debt operations that we want to do. So government has chosen to go by the voluntary approach so that we strongly believe that these are partners who have benefited from the Ghana bond market. Yes, we are in difficult times and we either swim together or we sink together. And government is saying, let us find a way at the moment to reduce some of the benefits that goes to our partners, so that over a period we can redeem and begin to see the same profitability that we have enjoyed all this.
So it's voluntary. When you met the institutional investors, did they indicate to you that they will sign on?
Oh yes, we are very confident about it.
No, because that's confidence different, but did they actually
They did.
indicate to you that they will sign on?
Yes, they will sign on.
All of them? You didn't have some institutions fighting this?
Initially some will express reservations, but when you explain to them and the enormity of the problem and where we are and how we can all get out better, most of them agree, and I believe that we're going to have...
So what happens, because it's voluntary, right? What happens to those institutions who refuse to sign on?
Okay, so then you don't get the carrots, the benefits, the buffers that is provided. And then you're on your own. It means that you are open to default in terms of if the market is unable to redeem, fine. Like you said, you may even go to court because of the default.
Yeah, they can sue you.
Yeah, you can sue. But in the end, if you sue a man of straw in a broken system, what benefits are you hoping to gain? So it is better we work together and then we support each other to get out of the difficulty. And I believe many of them will be understanding these arrangements. And we'll continue to engage them and let them be rest assured that we stand to gain better together than to fight over these matters.
So, but there's also an alternative.
Yes.
And you just mentioned, where you are allowed as a state to use a parliamentary process or through legislation.
Yeah, the coercive approach.
Yes.
Yeah, we know.
Have you considered that?
Yes, but we don't want to use that approach because, like you said, these bondholders are known. And these are players in our economy over a long time. And they will continue to play in the Ghanaian economy. Whether you're a pension fund or whatever bank or whatever, you still need a strong Ghanaian economy for your future profitability. So these are difficult times, and we all need to come to an agreement that let's give up something and save the system for ourselves. I believe a better engagement, an orderly, amicable engagement will yield us better than the coercive approach. For now, that is how government thinks it has to go about it.
So when are you hoping to have clarity on which institutions have signed on before you close this?
At the end of there's an announcement of, I think it's 10 days or so for interested bondholders to sign on.
Oh, okay. So, no, I didn't hear that announcement. So that's the clarity.
Yeah.
So, beginning when?
From today.
From today?
Yes.
So, all institutional investors who want to sign on have 10 days to do so?
Well, I'm not very sure of the number of days, but
okay,
there's a period which I think was 10 days, but I'm not so sure of that.
Okay, because we need to clarify, because
Yes.
remember that this is all part of trying to get people to calm.
Exactly.
Information is keen in this in this matter.
Yes, but it's an opening and a closure, and by that time we'll be able to know how many people have signed on.
Certainly before the end of the year,
of course, yes.
of December.
Yes, I believe it's 10 days. Yeah.
Okay, for them to sign on.
Yes.
So if at the end of this period,
Yes,
some haven't signed on,
yes,
what happens?
It means they are not entitled to the buffer arrangements we have provided. It means they are prepared to go with the market and face all the consequences that they may be there, and that is it.
So that means you wouldn't be able to pay them, etc.
Could be.
And if it's a pension fund, indirectly,
It may even be worse with that approach than we working together to redeem it.
yeah, but then the workers the individuals who will be affected as a result will come after you.
Well, so that's the stark reality, of course, that you may not be able to get your funds if, of course, those managing your bonds do not decide to sign up to the debt exchange program. Based on this, the Attorney General, in a legal opinion, is asking the Finance Minister to refrain from taking any decision that will make him use legislative instruments to retrospectively limit holders of domestic bonds. So let's bring you excerpts of what it is that the Attorney General has been speaking about, excerpts of that on your screens right now. In view of the foregoing, it is my opinion, as the Attorney General is indicating, that first of all, in the absence of an agreement by the parties, it will be unlawful for the government to unilaterally introduce a class action agreements, as it is, that's the CACs, into the bond agreements, and may constitute an event of default under Clause 12 of the terms and conditions of the bonds issued, of course, under the debt exchange program. Beyond this as well, the Attorney General is equally cautioning the Finance Minister against taking some steps. First of all, the indirect approach of the enactment of an Act of Parliament or legislative instrument prescribing a collective action mechanism in relation to the bonds is plausible insofar as the proposed inclusion of the voting percentage threshold for effecting change to the bond agreements does not interfere with the accrued rights of any party or third-party beneficiaries of bond agreements, and also does not operate retrospectively to impose limitations that adversely affect the personal rights and liberties of any party to a bond agreement beyond their will. So it's clear now what it is that the Attorney General has been advising the Finance Minister on. In fact, he's going ahead to even caution against the use of executive powers. So, for instance, executive powers, including the executive instruments such as emergency powers, may not be, quote, lawfully employed to impose class actions agreements on bondholders, since they will operate retrospectively and may also constitute an event of default under Clause 12 of the Terms and Conditions of the bonds issued under the program, and may be in breach of the terms of the bond agreement. So that's the warning coming through from the Attorney General. And of course, there will be a need, as is indicating, that there will be a need for voluntary engagements with relevant parties to the bond agreements that will be able to produce some outcome of voluntary modification, which government is giving a clear stance on that they will stick to. Looking at all of this, what will be the legal implication and what will the signal to our markets? I want to introduce now Mona Korte. She's a former Deputy Minister in charge of Finance. Joseph Dindiok-Penka is also a former Deputy Attorney General. Thank you, gentlemen and lady, for joining us here on The Pulse. Let me start off with you, Mona Korte. Of course, government says it intends to run a voluntary debt exchange program. Do you see this working feasibly?
Blessing, thank you very much. Good afternoon to yourself and your audience. To answer your question directly, it is possible. It's a structure that can be executed, but it requires all the compliance boxes being checked, as you've rightly read out: legal compliance, social compliance, financial compliance, that all these boxes are ticked. So in terms of a structure, it is a viable structure. In terms of will it work for Ghana in the circumstances, I have my doubts. One, as you've rightly said, the Attorney General has raised some red flags. Two, there has not been any real consultation with debt instrument holders. And we all know that many of us Ghanaians hold some of these instruments. There's been no conversation with any of us as to how it will be done. When the president, in his speech to Ghanaians, his fellow Ghanaian speech, said there will be no haircuts, and then there were so many adjustments made to that statement, we are now realizing that they are talking about no haircuts, meaning no haircuts on principle, but there will be no interest except what they are dictating. I mean, for a contract to be changed midstream so radically is totally unacceptable. What this does for us as a nation, even if we as individuals wanted to accept it, what this does for a nation is that it sends signals that we are not law-abiding, we don't keep to contract terms, we can change them midstream, and therefore we become an even more risky country or nation to deal with. Country risk, political risk starts to go high. The pricing of that is going to be factored into our borrowing, if we can even borrow at all from the international market. But also we send signals even to our own people that when we sell them risk-free, in quotes, treasury bills and bonds, this is what can happen to it. This has medium to long-term implications, which are not good for this nation. And at this point, I really have to say, and I usually do not like to make such categorical statements, but this economic management team has failed our nation miserably by being so opaque, not being transparent, not discussing and informing people exactly what is going on with the IMF program, what is entailed. We knew that they did not pass the debt sustainability assessment requirement. And we kept talking about debt restructuring and that it would happen. They kept saying no. And now here it is in a form of fashion that is asking more questions than giving answers. So at this time, although the structure may be viable, it's in the context of a no-win situation. Many people asking more questions. And I'm not sure that the government itself is guaranteeing us that this pain will result in a turnaround for the nation long after they have gone and left Ghanaians in the dust. Because 2028 and all those years that they refer to are years by which time there'll be other ruling parties or governments in place, and they will be gone, and other people have to bear the consequences.
And I just
Bottom line, the nation will have to bear the consequences of their mismanagement, and they coming up with solutions that they have not discussed thoroughly and even thought through properly.
And just borrowing the words of the deputy finance minister, he says, we're in this together, we either swim or perish. That's how dire the situation is. When government asks for alternatives that are beside the debt exchange program, feasibly, what could we be exploring?
Government never discussed the debt exchange program with the general public or with even other parties, trying to even create a coalition to discuss solutions with other parties. That did not happen. Many of the advice that was given much earlier was not even listened to. They didn't even want us to know exactly what was going on with the IMF discussions, not to talk about the debt restructuring. In President Mahama's speech that he gave about the economy, which started with a presentation by Dr. Atu-Forson, we spoke at length about debt restructuring and potential haircuts and preparing the nation for such a time. But they kept saying no. They knew what they were doing. That's not what was going to happen. And they twisted and turned the whole story. Today, they've come up with a debt exchange, which, as I've said, in itself is not an evil thing. But it has come to people who you had said you would not do this. This is the second time the government is making a U-turn. They said they would not go to the IMF. They said there would be no haircuts. And today, here we are seeing interest being cut off. I mean, for crying out loud, if you have interest cut off from your investment or interest paid to you at a different time than you expect, looking at the time value of money, you have had a haircut. So all this gymnastics just to show that they are in effect not, there will be no haircuts and so forth, is annoying to say the least. Government needs to come out, say the truth, and then we can give alternatives. You cannot give alternatives to a story that is inaccurate. And therefore, there's no way that we can give alternatives except to speak to the problems on the ground and come up with some solutions, which clearly have not been adhered to or listened to or even considered. So at this point, they've already come out with this nebulous solution, which people are shocked. The signals that are going out is that this nation is bankrupt because there's going to be cross defaults as we listen to what they are saying. And they are even giving a timeline by which when citizens or holders of these bills and bonds don't apply for the new bonds and bonds, they will not get anything. What does that mean? That you lose your investment completely? How do you lend to a government, to ESLA, to DACHE, and to all that, and then lose your investment completely? This is being handled so badly and so quickly. They're not even giving investment investors, as it were, a chance to even think through this properly and be able to make a clear decision. Blessing, that is my point on it. It's very confusing, it's spinning, and the government is giving everyone a headache.
And very finally, our hope is on the IMF bailout program. Government was targeting the end of this year, but it appears that may not happen. What are the likely implications from your perspective?
I mean, first of all, don't even talk about end of year getting a program. What we had all said was, at best, there'll be a staff level agreement by the end of the year. It is the government that kept telling the story about having a program. That is not even possible or feasible. A staff level agreement by the end of the year as to what to do. Yet a budget comes out that does not show real seriousness towards cutting expenditure, but more on raising more revenue on a already suffering group. We expect that sometime next year, when the IMF is satisfied that indeed we can cut our expenditure, we can be compliant with our revenue, and we can raise enough funds to be debt sustainable, that they will give us a board-approved program. But end of this year is out. And increasingly, this government is losing credibility, especially the economic management team is losing credibility because they keep promising with timelines that don't happen. So we are not going to get a program this year. At best, it will be sometime next year if we get our act right by cutting on expenditure, the government size, and making sure that we use the gift miss system so that we can account for our expenditure.
You're predicting good times ahead?
In the short term, there's going to be a lot of pain. In the medium term, there may be some ray of hope. But for now, it's going to be a lot of pain.
Mona Kote, we're grateful for your time here on The Pulse, and thanks for joining us with your perspective. Let's speak to Joseph Kpemka, former Deputy Attorney General. And of course, Joe, it's a great time to be talking to you again, knowing that, of course, someone you've worked closely with, who's now the Attorney General, has issued his opinion on this. What's your take on some of the issues being raised by the Attorney General on the likely legal implications if we go ahead with a debt exchange program? Possibly, we may have to go back to some of the key issues the Attorney General is raising, and you'd have excerpts of that on your screens shortly. But I just want to pick up your thoughts, initial reaction to this likely impact that we may be in breach as a nation of the, bond contracts if we go ahead with the debt exchange program.
Yeah, good afternoon, my brother. Good afternoon to your cherished listeners and viewers. Good afternoon to my brother and learned colleague, the Honorable Deputy Minister, and good afternoon to my colleague on the other line, the Honorable Mona Kote. First of all, let me say preliminarily that when I heard the Finance Minister lay out those well thought out ways of getting out of the present situation, I raised a question immediately. In fact, I didn't even know there was an opinion coming from AG, but I immediately raised the question. The question I raised was the bonds were advertised, people went in to buy, so it became a contract. Okay? Then you had the offer and then the acceptance, basic principles of the law of contract. There was an offer, there was an acceptance, and then the contract was consummated. So you had people coming in to take these bonds. In return, they paid certain monies, and etc. And so the contract was concluded at that level. And there were deadlines as to when these executions would be carried out by the parties. So it was not within the capacity of any of the contracting parties to unilaterally come out with a roadmap, and indeed without consultation with the other party. It was not. So that is the first beef that I had, and I actually raised it when I read what the Honorable Finance Minister did. It has good intentions. It is an excellent idea to get out of our current economic doldrum and quagmire that we find ourselves in. It's a very fantastic idea of trying to think through the box to get out of a situation. But you have to get the fundamentals right. Otherwise, you would get it basically wrong, and then the other contracting parties can raise issues, and then a court of law may have to make a determination, and that will take us backwards, and etc. And so I believe that.
Yes, you're not touching on the key concerns of the Attorney General. I just want us to perhaps go back to some of the key points he's raising.
Right. Because I'm not going to look at the long write-up. I'm looking at the conclusion.
Yeah, what then is the conclusion? Well, we'll get that on the screens right now. Let's go back to what it is that the Attorney General has been talking about. In terms of the conclusion, and we'll get that for you shortly, the Attorney General appears not to be enthused about using legal instruments just to try and get through this, of course, debt exchange program. That's his conclusion.
Yeah, that's exactly what I have actually said, if you have heard me. What I'm saying is that, you see, if you look at the way he set out his arguments, even decided cases by our superior courts of judicature to buttress his position. If you have looked at the opinion, he says that it's been made, several decisions have been taken that once contracting parties agree on a matter and they enter into a contract for the execution of a particular project or a financial instrument and etc., then it has not lie in the amount of one of them to unilaterally abrogate or dictate terms without recourse to the original agreement that they actually entered into that gave birth to the original contract. And so if you look at the opinion, as I said, I totally agree with the Attorney General, and I thought that what the Finance Minister had said was going to be a proposal or a roadmap that then will have to be accepted by the other contracting parties before it is consummated. Otherwise, if it becomes a final document which is compelling or mandatorily supposed to be imposed on the other contracting parties, that will be suppression. It will be unlawful, and then the other parties may be compelled to seek redress in a court of law. And then the very progress we intend to achieve by the release that the Finance Minister made will be derailed completely. So I'm saying that the engagement that the state was supposed to have, the Finance Ministry was supposed to actually have with the other contracting parties, which hasn't been done. It is not too late in the day to do. The consultation processes can go on. Let us reach agreements concrete enough by both contracting parties so that in the end, when we are carrying out this, we will avert every other legal ways that people will seek in court to derail and avert the opportunity that government is seeking to exploit to be able to get out of the situation. So my take on it is straightforward, that once it is a contract that you go into for these bonds to be issued, for the contracting parties to actually enjoy their rights with respect to the bonds that have been issued, one of the parties cannot unilaterally take the terms long after it has been consummated or executed. And that is basically what the Attorney General is saying.
You agree this put government, this is actually putting government's austerity plan in a difficult position. The fact that if anyone or any of the domestic bond holders decides to disregard this debt exchange program on a voluntary basis, government is bound by law to make sure that the funding is made available. But you have the Deputy Minister saying, well, you'll be on your own if you don't sign up for the program.
Well, that is why I'm telling you that if you go that way and then the consultation is not deep and there's no consensus building and appeal to the persons to subscribe to the idea you are mooting, and you decide to go unilateral and go the line that you are going to suppress the other side by virtue of state power and authority, then you are going to face a certain level of difficulty, because some of these persons, as I did indicate, can go to a court of law and ask for a declaration in their favor that what you are doing constitutes a breach of contract, and to that extent, the courts will compel government to act in a certain way or manner. And I'm saying that again will derail the process, because you cannot stop anybody from going to court anyway, and that will derail the process. So rather than a certain posturing of we will go ahead and do A, B, C, D, damn you, we should rather be appealing to the conscience of these and build some kind of consensus around it so that the implementation process can be very smooth and transparent with the admiration of both parties. Remember that the country is not ending today or tomorrow. It is going to exist in perpetuity, and whatever we do today with these bonds and instruments will have an influence in going forward in our dealings with the public and other entities tomorrow.
Right.
So
very finally, what will prevent? Of course, in terms of law or precedent, what will prevent the Republic of Ghana from passing any law that will go retrospect? Is it the case that it has not?
No, that would be unconstitutional.
Right.
That would be clearly unconstitutional, because retrospectivity in our constitution is completely outlawed. And any attempt to make a law that will take retrospective effect will be shut down by any competent court when it is brought for interpretation by the Supreme Court or for a pronouncement by any superior court of judicature. So it's very clear that a parliament can enact a law, but in enacting that law, it has to be cautious that it doesn't breach the principles and basics of the Constitution to the extent that the law takes retroactive effect, because that clearly, by virtue of our history, has been outlawed black and white in our Constitution. There is no debate about it. So I think that rather than talking about legality and other issues that will use to further derail the process and suppress the rights of persons or individuals, entities, and etc., I think engagement will be the way to go. and then you get everybody on board and restructure it in a manner that will be consensus building. I think that would be the best way forward. Because if we want to go by strict legalese, then somebody will come and say that, yes, I entered into this with you under the agreement that ABCD will happen. Once you have not been able to do this, I'm walking out of it and I'm taking my money back. That, again, would be problematic for us. And I think that the posture has to change, and then consensus building will have to take the lead rather than going too legalistic. Otherwise, as I said, people will be compelled under the circumstances to seek pronouncements from courts, which would derail the very process we are seeking to project.
Well, we just hope that government will indeed find the middle ground. Joseph Dindiok-Penka is a former Deputy Attorney General. Thank you for your time here on The Pulse. Even as we speak about Ghana's economic crisis in Parliament, a lot has been happening. Government's budget statement and economic policy for the 2023 fiscal year has been approved by Parliament. Processes leading to the adoption of the economic plan was faced with stiff opposition from the minority and even some NPP lawmakers who already or earlier threatened to boycott the budget approval process owing to President Akufo-Addo's failure to dismiss Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. In spite of the controversies, the budget statement, as we understand, has been passed by majority vote in Parliament. Joining us now is parliamentary correspondent Kweku Asante, who has the very latest for us. Kweku, take us away. Now it's been approved, but of course it was not without an incident. I'm sure that there were some concerns by the minority side in the House, correct?
So yes, Blessed, before the budget was approved, before the Speaker of Parliament put that question, the minority and majority leaders concluded the debate on the budget and economic policy of government. We first heard from the minority leader, Haruna Idris, who made the point that the current economic challenges is self-inflicted. It's because of government's unbridled borrowing. And he accused directly the Minister for Finance, who was in the House, of spearheading this. He said that despite government accepting that there's a crisis, they are failing to accept responsibility. They are failing to say that we are the cause of the mess and to seek apology from Ghanaians. And so he went on and said that the minority were going to reject or resist the approval of the 2.5% increase in VAT. We later heard from the majority leader who said that this VAT rate increase we primarily used to finance road construction. And so if the minority thought that they did not want new roads, then they should say. And so he rallied their support for this approval. So the Speaker of Parliament then put the question for the approval of the budget statement and economic policy. Mind you, this is not everything. This is just the statement that was made by the Finance Minister on the floor of the House 2 weeks ago that has now been approved. When the Speaker of Parliament put the question, it appeared at the first instance that the noes had it. The minority shouted no. The Speaker of Parliament asked that the vote be put again. And this time around, according to him, the ayes had it. And so he proceeded to declare that the 2023 budget statement and economic policy of government has now been approved. But like I told you, the minority insisted that their noes had it, but there was no challenge, and this has been done. Okay. What is going to happen next is that
yeah, but the question still remains as to how we're able to get this sufficient number to pass the budget. The debate processes leading to this were not encouraging. Of course, that featured prominently on the floor of the House.
Indeed, during the debate from last week, the House was virtually empty, and we brought viewers a report about that. And so this time around, the concerns were that if the numbers were that low, then the minority were going to be able to disapprove of the budget like they did last year. But this time around, it appears the whips on both sides really went to work. At the time the minority leader and the majority leader concluded the debate, the House was virtually full. Almost every seat was occupied. And so it was clear that both leaders were working to get their numbers on the floor for this approval process to take place. And so the vote was eventually put by voice, and then the budget was approved.
Anyway, quick question, you would have to leave it here for now. I'm sure a lot more is happening on the floor that you have to catch up with. We're grateful. But don't forget that, of course, the process leading to the approval of this budget, part of the key concerns by some NPP MPs was that the president would have to either reshuffle or fire the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta. So why is the president still having a difficulty in reassigning the finance minister? Well, former President John Kufuor says presidents, not just Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, should have no difficulty in reshuffling their ministers. According to him, that actually breeds a new idea and some sort of ingenuity into government. In the last few days, members of the NPP side of Parliament have been asking the president to try and reassign or dismiss the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta. And of course, they claim that he's been underperforming. Speaking on calls for a reshuffle, former President John Kufuor, in an interaction with the Institute of Economic Affairs at his residence in Peduase Monday, indicated that presidents must not have difficulties in reassigning their ministers.
No, I didn't reshuffle just for the frequency of it. No. Any shifts I made, like I mentioned, Mrs. Asma, I liked her so much. May she rest in peace. And she helped me so much when I was canvassing to become president. Western region, she ran a small loan scheme herself before we came to power. And in the way she contributed towards establishing Maslow. And so when we got into power, I said, women and children, and she was trying to do it. But along the way, I saw that she wasn't pulling the support I expected from the ladies, the women. When I say ladies, I mean the women generally. And especially the younger women, she was a bit aged. So I sensed, and we wanted the young people to get enthused with our efforts. So I looked, and then I would mention the one who is Ghana's ambassador to America now, Halima, young, smart. I saw that she would bring on board the young people, the women generally. So I said, perhaps Mrs. Asma would be more effective going to the fisheries to open the place up for us. So that's how I did the reshuffle. And Halima came on board, and I think Halima seemed to be making the impact with the young people. The women generally, we were talking, fighting teenage pregnancies and all those things. So perhaps the younger people. So that's the rationale. So I didn't reshuffle just for the sake, but we were watching. The president's role is like a coach, not just a team leader. A coach. You have to know what your ministers are doing, whether they are being positive or whether you think they are just being average. When you should expect more of them, then you should have the courage to say, please, you don't belong here, go there, or perhaps sit aside. That's how I did mine. And that thing should not be like seasonal, it should be continuous.
Former President John Kufuor. Let me bring in now Dr. Asa Asante, political scientist at the University of Ghana. Thank you, Doc, for your time. So he says that a president must be like a coach. Basically, we're not sure if he's referring to President Akufo-Addo, but of course, his later background by giving experience of what happened during his tenure. In the wake of the calls for the dismissal or either a reshuffle, which would include reassigning Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, what should we be making of this statement coming through from the former president?
Good afternoon, Blessed. I think it's a good call, and whether we like it or not, it points to this government that there's a need to reshuffle ministers from time to time. The essence of reshuffle is to do a lot of things. One, to inject fresh energy into the system so that whoever is not performing up to expectation, you are able to change that person and then get a new person on board. Another important aspect of it is that when you reshuffle, you are able to bring in, a lot of people, or you are able to close a certain gap. For instance, if you have a generational gap, you want certain categories of people to be in to represent a certain interest, you are able, through reshuffle, bring the person in. So it's an all-important exercise that needs to be carried out religiously and from time to time. Why do we reshuffle? The more important reason is that you want performance, because every government, at the end of the day, you go to the people to renew your mandate, and you go there on grounds that you have worked, for which reason you need what? A renewal of your mandate. So if you don't reshuffle your team, they will not be able to deliver. It doesn't matter how loyal they will be. If the person is an incompetent person, you don't hesitate at all to crack the whip and throw that person out. If you see this government, it has a lot of difficulty. We have seen very few reshuffled, one or two. But we are where we are simply because of poor performance and other factors. So if the president continues to say that, yes, my ministers are performing and all that, you and I know that that is not the case on the ground.
I don't intend to be fixated on the finance minister, but of course his case has been recent. Even in Parliament, we saw some NPP MPs asking for his reassignment or dismissal. That did not happen. Why? And what do you suspect is that difficulty of the president in simply taking that action?
For the Minister of Finance, I don't know the reason, and I can't speak for the president. But what I'm saying that it is a necessary end that we get some of the ministers changed so that now that we are going for IMF World Bank facility, we need a change. We are going to have a change in policy direction. And one of the reasons why you reshuffle is one, you are going to change policy, the direction of policy. And that means that you bring in people who have the expertise, the experience, the knowledge, the wherewithal to be able to deliver the goods that you need to be able to survive this turbulent, system. So it is incumbent upon the government, for that matter, the president, to do the needful by changing some of the people who are non-performing. It is true that there are non-performing ministers. I mean, I will not blink. Those people must go to give way to new ideas, fresh blood, so that the government can really perform.
You are the expert here. In system analysis, obviously, input is key. Some say that this could be one of the diplomatic ways of making that input, especially when it's coming from a former head of state. Do you see this as feedback to the president?
Oh, straight away it is, because he is part of the party. He has ruled this country and he's now on retirement. He will not want to sit down when things fall apart, when he has something to share. And that is all statesmen they do all over the world, that when the going gets tough, you can count on them. They will come with ideas that are not corrupted, that are genuine and sincere. So I think that it is important for the government to give it a hearing and then do the needful. The reshuffle people are talking about is not the case that they just want it, but we are not seeing performance, so to speak. So in order for the government to perform and be able to live up to expectation, it is important that the government take this advice seriously.
Doc, is it all bad when you have a president who says, let's keep my ministers, keep them as long as you can so they can master the job?
Oh, if you are keeping incompetent ministers in office, what do you expect? Are you expecting results, or you are expecting failure? All right. I'm not sure the president wants failure. So it is important that those, of course, not all of them are not performing. The few ones who are not performing, he must muster the courage to get them out of his government and bring in people who can deliver. There are a lot of human resources in this country that when you give them the opportunity, I bet you they can deliver without a blink of eye.
There's a lot of suspicion that part of the reason why the president is unfazed about public opinion, whatever feedback it is that is coming from rank and file of the party, is simply because, politically speaking, there's nothing at stake for the president. He's not running for elections again, and so he could go ahead and implement whatever policy he thinks he can.
I disagree with that position, because I'm not sure the president wants the party to end after his exit. Not at all. I don't speak for the president, but no president will do that, especially he, for instance, who has toiled, gone through the pains and aches, and then he has been where he is, and that he wants to see the demise of his party after he has exited. No leader does that. And that it is only the reason, which I don't know, why he's not changing them, but far from it, that the president doesn't care a hoot about what happens to his party and all that. If that is the thinking of the president, I'll be so surprised. And I'm not sure that is the thinking at all. It is because of certain factors that you and I are not privy to, but other than what you're saying.
And in fact, the conversation brings up the powers invested in the president by the Constitution. Part of the reason why, of course, we have the former president speaking. That forum was for constitutional reform. I mean, conversations surrounding that. And part of the issues that came up has got to do with the powers giving to the president of the republic. Is it time that we revised or, of course, take a second look at what it is that the powers are for a president in our constitution?
Yeah, people say that the powers of the president are too enormous, too much for him to be able to use to administer the state and all that. I disagree, and I disagree with respect. Why am I saying that? If you look at every power that is ascribed to the president through the Constitution and other laws of this, there is a corresponding limitations on the powers of the president. Otherwise, we are saying that the president has absolute powers. But you and I, as students of, Rousseau, as the knowledge that we are born free, but we are limited. And that is why framers of the Constitution did not give the president absolute power. If you look at any power, take for instance, the power to appoint ministers. The president can appoint so many ministers, but they need to go through what? The parliament for approval. Parliament can reject them. It's a limitation. The president has the power to, free people who the court has convicted, and then get them away. But if we disagree, that exercise, we can punish the president through an election, the immediate election, we throw him away for the simple reason that we want some people to be behind bars and he has set them free. Every power that is given to the president, there is a corresponding limitation. What we need to do is that anytime we are looking for leaders, we need to look for leaders who we think that we can engage when the need arises. We can also consult. We can have dialogue with. But if you have leaders who have certain posture that it's difficult to get closer to, it's difficult to dialogue with them, then it becomes a problem.
You agree your opinion is not popular?
Well, that's my opinion. That put me, that is the beautiful aspect of it, it is my opinion. What we are saying is that when you look at, more often than not, when we select people based on party tradition, based on ideology and all that. Right. It is about time we look at these things critically and select people that we think that can deliver. I'm not saying that we're wrong in selecting Mr. President today, who's the leader. No. But I'm saying that there are a lot that we need to consider when some of these things come up. And then we pose questions to them. Some of them, we have to even force political parties to put in the manifesto. Looking at the conversation you are having with the finance people and all that, my impression is that next time we are going for election, we should be making important decisions to the fact that we want to be sure that political parties or those who win power will not send it to IMF, World Bank. Anybody who does that, we should have the courage to throw that party away next time we have opportunity to vote. Because if you look at the conditions, they are very difficult, very, very difficult. And it's beginning to, bite us so hard. And that's my submission.
Finally, what do you see as that option in trying to convince the president, at least convince is the word, to have him carry out a reshuffle?
If the president wants to do, I think he would do it. No advice. The president gets better advice from people who have surrounded him. And then he knows the focus and direction that he wants to take this country to. But the little that I can say is that I'm sure that the president wants to leave a legacy that will stand the test of time. If that is the case, then he needs to listen, because governance is nothing but a dialogue. And that when people suggest things, you need to listen. If they make sense, use them. But if you don't and you want to run it as a monologue, there is a price to pay for that.
Well, we'll see what the price will be, but we're grateful for your time here on The Pulse.
I am also grateful.
Asa Asante joining us here on the Pulse, political scientist at the University of Ghana. Let's stay on politics. A lot happening in the opposition NDC as well. Incumbent chairperson of that party, Samuel Ofosu-Ampofo, is lacing his boots to face perhaps his biggest political battle. He comes up against the incumbent General Secretary of the NDC, Johnson Asiedu Nketia, who spent 17 years being General Secretary of the party and will be facing off at the December 17 polls. By all indications, this will be an intriguing contest. Of course, a win or a lose for one of the contestants will come out, of course, with some political bruises on them. But Mr. Ofosu-Ampofo is confident of victory. So here's Elton Brobe with more on that.
The gloves are off, the line drawn in the sand, and there is no holding back as incumbent national chairman of the NDC, Samuel Ofosu-Ampofo, sticks his neck out to face perhaps the biggest battle of his political career. He will face the General Secretary of the NDC, Johnson Asiedu Nketia, in the contest of pride, supremacy and command in the NDC. But he's absolutely certain he'll retain the chairmanship slot.
In just 2 years in office as chairman of the party, together with my team of dynamic executives, we were able to increase our seats in parliament from 106 to 137. And our presidential votes also moved from 4.8 million to approximately 6.3 million. A very quantum jump. With your support, we can rescue our beloved country from the clutches of the Akufo-Addo MPP government that has brought untold hardships on Ghanaians.
Samuel Ofosu-Ampofo has had an illustrious political life since age 29, when he was first elected as branch organizer for the Fantiako constituency in the Eastern region. He will later go on to become a district chief executive, a deputy regional minister in the Eastern region, national organizer of the NDC, and a local government minister. He says the experience gained over the years is unmatched and assured he will lead the NDC to win the 2024 general elections.
I pledge to continue to build an all-inclusive party, united and focused under the guidance of our core values of freedom, transparency, solidarity, probity, and accountability. And if I tell you I'm a unifier, indeed I'm a unifier.
But his reign as national chairman of the NDC has not been without criticism. The party's poor performance in the 2016 general elections, an allegation of non-collation of election results in the last elections, has been blamed on him. But Ofosu-Ampofo is rejecting the charge.
We collated our results. It is very clear. We have every resource there. And in that case, if we did not collate results, the chief executive of the party is the general secretary. He runs the party day to day. All the departments of the party are under him. They report directly to him. So if he's coming to contest me, why do you single the chairman out and say the chairman should be held responsible? No, but I'm saying that people have their jobs cut out for them. I am not responsible for collation of election results.
He also believes the contest between him and Mr. Asiedu Nketia could have been avoided as it risks dividing the party ahead of the crucial elections in 2024.
This move is a wrong move. It is not a politically correct decision. It may pursue in a personal interest, but we should have looked at the larger interest of the party. And there were moves by the Council of Elders. His Excellency President Mahama Nkasa making moves more than 1 year ago. And the General Secretary said that he had not taken a decision and that he has options. And so there were moves. There were every effort that was made to prevent this from happening. But, well, you can force the donkey to the riverside, but you cannot force it to drink. And if the person says, I'm going, it's his constitutional right. But I think that that right is not in the interest of the party.
But as delegates of the NDC decide who should lead the party, supporters of Samuel Ofosu-Ampofo have one demand for their candidate: Kum Ntontom Preko, to wet, kill mosquito once.
Victory will be for Ofosu-Ampofo come December 7th, and we are going to teach somebody a bitter lesson. From victory unto victory.
And we are your election headquarters. Get the very latest on the NDC's internal primaries here on the JoyNews channel, on radio, TV and online. We're getting that for you. But for now, the polls will be on break. We'll return to talk about a lot more happening in this country. Please stay. And you're welcome back to The Pulse. Now, this month, the Land and Natural Resources Ministry will hold the National Land Conference. The theme is leveraging national land policy, legislation and institutional capacity towards sustainable socio-economic development. So, of course, we're asking that question: what will be the focus and how will it address the myriad of challenges and problems we have with land administration and ownership here in Ghana? Joining me in studio now is Nana Ama Yira, founder and executive director for Colandef, and her organization is part of many that will be participating in the conference, which is already underway. It's good to be talking to you here in The Pulse. Welcome.
Thank you.
So we know that, of course, there are so many challenges in the sector which we'll go into, but what was that idea and motive behind the conference that we're seeing today?
All right, thank you very much. And I would like to say that this conference is actually being organized by the ministry in partnership with Colandef, the Land Economy Department of KNUST, and the Lands Commission. So all of us are partners in holding this conference. We are not only participating. Right. And I want to emphasize that because the whole idea is that this land sector agenda is a multi-stakeholder agenda. All of us are part of it. And so the ministry is bringing all of us together as co-facilitators, as co-hosts of this conference. Why has this become important? You remember that somewhere in December 2020, we had the new Land Act, which was signed and became a legal document regulating land administration in Ghana. Since that time, for many of us who are in the sector, we believe that this new law is actually a progressive one that holds promise of addressing a lot of the issues we have in the land sector. Right. And therefore, we need to work together to lift it up from just being a document to being a working document that guides what we do in land administration. So that is one of the reasons to bring awareness to this Land Act, to set up a multi-stakeholder platform where we can all work together towards implementing the Land Act to achieve the goals, and to look at the innovations in the sector. There's so many happening. Right. And some of these innovations are scalable. So we want to look at these innovations and see how we can promote them and make them part of our land agenda.
You know that anytime we talk about land administration in this country, so many challenges come up. So what are you focusing on this time around as part of the conference? I'm sure that you may not be able to deal with all of them, but there are some key issues and pertinent ones that you're looking at.
Yeah. So one of the key things is that, and I have been in the sector, I have been practicing in the land sector for close to 28 years now. Right. I am a land professional myself. I do a lot of education and sensitization in the local communities. One thing that is fundamental in addressing the land sector challenges is education. Many of us Ghanaians don't know much about the land sector. We don't know much about land administration. Right. We don't know much about what we can do to protect our own land rights.
And even the policies and the laws.
There are many. I've encountered many people who occupy landed properties and they have not taken their time to read the agreements they have signed on the landed properties. So we say that, yes, the state has a responsibility. Yes, all of us have a responsibility, but the individual land user also has a responsibility. So this land conference is seeking to promote awareness on the Land Act for people to know what role they have in ensuring that they can protect their land rights. But of course, to also highlight the role of the states and of all the land sector agencies, and also the civil society actors who are promoting a lot of these interventions.
And very often when we have some of these conferences taking place, the argument is you leave this to the experts. We're not able to tell on the grounds what the effects are. What practical outcomes are you targeting this time around?
So first of all, you know, this is not about the experts. If you go to the conference center right now, you have all our traditional leaders there. Oh. You're
opening this up to...
This is opened to... Of course, people have to be invited to participate. But what we are saying is that the participants are from diverse categories of stakeholder groups. So this is really about us, the people who are affected, who are beneficiaries of whatever benefits that the Land Act brings. So we are not doing this as an academic exercise. We are not doing this as a talk shop. We are doing this as an introspection of ourselves as far as we being actors in the land sector is concerned, so that we ask ourselves the critical questions and the role we have to play in bringing about the solutions. And like I said, this time it's not about apportioning blame. Who has done what or who has not done what? No, it's about where am I in this picture and what role do I have to play? Right. So for example, if I'm a traditional leader, what role do I have to play? If I'm a state agent, what do I have to play? If I'm a civil society act, if I am from the media, what do I have to? Because I have seen that in many cases in the media, those of us in the land and natural resource sector, we don't get much support. And it is not anybody's fault. Probably we haven't educated the media enough to be able to have interest in the land agenda. So we are saying that we want to transform the land sector. All of us are involved, including you and I.
Yes, and in fact, I am interested in exploring some of the issues that came up today as part of day one, but we'll talk about that shortly. I'm just wondering who the partners are, because earlier on you were saying you're not making this a sole campaign of Kolandef. You want this to be a partnership amongst all stakeholders. So who and who are you working with in organizing this?
So this is being organized under the auspices of the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. So the Honorable Minister of Lands and Natural Resources is the one we are working with. But this is being done in partnership with, Land Economy Department, Lands Commission, and Kolandef. So Kolandef is a civil society organization. Land Economy Department is academia. The Lands Commission is a policy implementer. The ministry is a policy regulatory, the policy agency. So if you look at it from this angle, you will see that even the setup for thinking, for conceptualizing this conference is not just from one angle, it's from a different, various perspectives. That is one. The other thing also is that the participants we are bringing together are people from diverse backgrounds, including community level actors, the academic institutions, and all the different actors. And what are we going to discuss? What are we going to focus on? The content. The content is not going to be research papers. The content is going to be experience sharing and lessons learned and innovations that are currently being implemented, having been tested and having been proven that it's scalable.
And that's why I'm interested, for instance, in day one and what you've been focused on.
So we started just this afternoon. We started at 2 p.m., so it's not been long. Okay. So as you would know, usually the opening is to get to know each other, warming ourselves up. So in the morning, we had the Deputy Minister, making a speech. We had the Chairman of the National Lands Commission doing the welcome address and so on. But it is really the agenda setting the tone for the conference. So we did an opening with some speeches, some introductions to help the participants to understand what they focus on. And the focus on the 5 objectives is what we are focusing on to make sure that we have a common understanding of these.
Let's talk about what we are expecting in the next few days. How many days is this event?
It's running till Friday.
Till Friday. So on a daily basis, you have different topics you're looking at?
Yeah.
So what are some of the issues that you'll be exploring, say, starting tomorrow?
So one of the issues is the New Land Act. What is in it? And what does it mean for you and I? That is going to be one of the first things we are going to look at. The other thing we are going to look at is the customary land administration.
That's a very controversial area.
And it is practical. And so we are going to unravel the nuances in customary land administration and what the challenges have been over the years and what solutions we can come to as far as the Land Act is concerned. You know, the Land Act has provisions that if we give attention to, will help all of us to improve customary land administration. But have we given attention to it at all? And who are supposed to be playing a role in that? We want to talk about that. So that from the conference, people know what role they have to play. Land use planning and special development. Permits, building permits. Areas being developed before even the area is schemed and so on. What is the issue? What are the concerns? What systems should be put in place to improve? So that is also another. We are also looking at the gender issues in land administration. You know, I wouldn't come here to talk about land rights without talking about gender. Yes, the women's land rights agenda.
It's on your priority list.
It's a huge one. And I know that sometimes it may sound a bit controversial, but you know, it is not.
Right.
It is a real issue. And for us, we are looking at the land rights for women from two perspectives. From the individual woman as a household member, but also from the traditional leadership as queen mothers and the role they have to play in customary land administration. So those two perspectives are all going to be part of the discussions this week.
And we're all looking forward to that. But is there any practical message that you'll be putting out there to our viewers as well, just so they can feel to be a part of what you're doing? Because essentially what you're doing is to carry everyone along.
Exactly. So actually we want to carry everyone along. This is for all of us. We all cannot gather at the Accra International Conference Center. So some of us are representing on behalf of everybody. But we want to assure the public that this is about us. So we want to work towards having a communique at the end of the conference so that whatever discussions, whatever experiences, recommendations we come to will be gathered and it will be documented. And after the conference, we will have a multi-stakeholder dialogue platform made up of different stakeholders from the public sector, from the civil society, from the private sector, from academia, from the international development partners, to form a multi-stakeholder platform that will take the recommendations from the conference and start, you know, unpacking them to see how we can implement the recommendation.
We need to go, but I'm just interested in trying to look into that crystal ball. I'm sure that you have some plans for illegal mining as well later in the year.
Well, I knew that was going to come. So I must say that the focus of this conference is not about any sector, any particular sector. No, we are focusing on the entirety of the customary land administration system. If we are able to make it work, it will definitely address the question of illegal mining.
Really?
Because, because the fundamental issues about access to land, customary lands, and the management of the use and occupation of land, it's all part of the customary land administration system. If people understand their role, and people know the mandates they have, and people have what it takes in terms of empowerment from the law, they can act. So we are not focusing on any particular sector. People have asked about the mining sector, the cocoa, oil palm,
I mean, people selling off the lands and all that.
There are numerous sectors we have to look at. But the point is, the fundamental basis of all of these is a customary land administration. And so all of it is encompassed in the discussion that we are going to have.
It's going to be a packed week, and we're all looking forward to that. I'm sure that you have a special message for our viewers, even as we wrap up.
Yes. Customary land administration is about all of us. Please, let's really pay attention to being aware of the land sector and the dynamics in the land sector policies so that we can protect ourselves. When we do that, then whatever mechanisms that the state puts in place will also strengthen the protection we have.
And that's Nanama Ira, founder of Polandef. And of course, you should be at the National Land Conference if indeed you'd find some time just this week to pass by.
And there is online participation.
Oh, indeed. So I'm sure that we'll be able to share the details on our social media handles and, of course, online for you to get details on that, but probably you want to share that briefly before we
So we will do that after.
Yeah, definitely, we'll do that.
And so
we'll be sharing that with our viewers. But of course, still on issues relating to our environment in our premiere edition of Climate Focus today, we'll put a spotlight on how the issues relating to, of course, the applied sciences in the Upper East region is beginning to help empower some students to create solar energy. Of course, this is happening in a bid to showcase the university's clean energy innovations to protect the environment. Mahmoud Nuruddin has the rest of the story for you.
Our planet is sitting on a time bomb. Ghana is at the mercy of the drastic impact of climate change. unmitigated sunshine, unpredictable rainfall, and depleting soil fertility, among others. How can the country deal with the threat of climate change while solving some of its basic problems? In a series of human-centered stories, we shine a light on some of the most basic innovative ideas that could help bring change.
In the midday sun of Castle Namor, the roof of Regent Troffin College of Applied Sciences gleams. The effect, though, comes from what is on the roof, a gleaming array of solar panels. Since 2013, this is where the Regent Troffin Education Foundation and its model schools have operated. The main job of the 30-watt panels is to power the entire institution, and it stands standing happy home for kids, which is part of the university's environmental policy.
Regent Troffin College of Applied Science, at first, we're having 8 kilowatt power system generating to only one facility, that is the library block. So it got to a time, because of the facilities being added, we have now upgraded the system to 30 kilowatt solar power system.
We need to find ways and means to contribute our quota to the Sustainable Development Goals, which we call the SDGs. So here at RECAS, in the Department of Agriculture for Social Change, we endeavor to actually bring results, not to only train our students to just become professionals in society, but to contribute their quota individually to achieving the SDGs.
Although the university is connected to the national grid, electricity is both expensive and non-renewable. However, the cost of electricity has decreased significantly since the solar panels were installed 9 years ago. The panels are part of the university-wide drive to promote clean and renewable energy for sustainable environment.
Each block have paid around 2,000 Ghana cedi, and then we have 3 facilities. So roughly 6,000 to 7,000 Ghana cedi a month, and then a year will be 84,000 Ghana cedi. If we are not being connected to solar, this is what we'll be spending.
I think we have gone through all the contributions RECAS is making towards ensuring climate change and also contributing towards green environments. And if I had my way, if out of all the universities in the country, we have 50% of the institutions in the country or the universities in the country adopting solar power system, I'm very sure that it will contribute largely to encouraging green environment and then making use of clean energy.
Because it's a renewable energy, it's not an issue of destroying the environment. It is actually another way of contributing to the SDGs, because one of the goals is to use clean and efficient energy. Just because we have the solar panel and the solar system, we are able also to irrigate crops, which would have probably been using, let's say, water pumps. And water pumps are known to be powered by either diesel or petrol. And we can even see that in our effort to feed people, we would rather be contributing to climate change.
So the panels, as you can see from the app, there are 128 panels. And then each panel is 280 watts. And it has been connected in strings. So 8 strings, and then 1 string contains 16 pieces. And then we also have batteries connected as battery banks. And then the batteries, we have 120 batteries. Each voltage is 2 volts, 696 amps hour. We also have inverters that after storage, the inverter will now convert it to AC. Then we'll power it with the lines so that it will go to individual block here.
President of the college and the foundation, Reverend Father Moses Assan, acknowledged a donation from the Global World AG in 2013 to build an 8-kilowatt solar system. The stiff tank Regent Troffin arranged for the materials to be sent from Germany to Ghana, and the installation was completed by Jack Solar in Tamale. In 2016, expansion plans were put in place to accommodate the growing number of users. A German consultant was hired to assist in the installation of the increased system to a 30 kilowatt. The president used his prize money from winning the education category of the MTN Foundation Heroes of Change in 2017 to fulfill the expansion plans.
Solar energy is reliable and it's also affordable. It is reliable when you are connected to solar. There will not be any lights off for you to be stranded somewhere. And then if you are able to afford and then maintain well, it will also help you a lot. Then when you look at the cost, it depends on the kind of system that you are going to build. When you build a system that is effective, that you are using within the range, I think it's also good for you.
Yes, I think the most important thing that the society of Sub-Saharan Africa, Ghana, and globally can do to help mitigate against climate change, to adapt against climate change, is actually a change of mindset. That is why we have our courses that are related to social change. In the sense that if you can't use any form of energy efficiently, even with the solar panels that we use,
the demand is enormous since students increasingly demand a reliable power supply.
Okay, my name is Matthew Ada Abasagwe. I'm a level 400 student pursuing a bachelor's degree in computer science. One of the best experiences I can say is that there is no instance that you say there's no light on campus so you cannot study as a student. I think that is one of the biggest advantage I have as a student. Whilst my colleagues in other institutions may cry that, oh, there's no power. When it rains, there are poles broken, there are transformer issues, and then power is gone off. We don't have such issue.
My name is Asampana Sylvia Talata in level 100 in the basic education department. I think I'm the biggest beneficiary of solar energy. I've been in Region Trophy Senior High School, and since I went there, we've been using solar energy throughout, and I've never experienced lights out.
Power has become so expensive in recent years that the Electricity Company of Ghana has declared war on 29 private and public organizations, including a university that owe the company 120 million cedis. Despite receiving disconnection letters from ECG, some of these institutions, owing as much as 45 million, have shown no commitment. Because the sun shines all throughout the earth, solar energy can be used anywhere and can be independent of the utility grid, since they can be combined with batteries for energy storage, making them cost-effective for remote locations. Solar models have no moving parts, which means they are low maintenance and have a long service life of 25 years or more of assured electricity.
When we talk of energy, we have different types of energies. We have solar energy, hydro energy, wind energy, and then thermal energy. By Recas, we are using solar energy. And then the solar energy in Africa here, we are blessed to have sun, which we normally produce, which normally give us much energy based on the solar. So when you talk of cost based on the solar energy, after the initial cost, still have money, you can be able to save a lot of money.
Previously, students at the university had to pay 200 cedis per year for electricity. However, with solar panels, it is free for both electricity and water.
There is always free light. We don't pay light bill, we don't pay water bill. And I've come to join the university again. And as I came to the university, it's still the same. We still use solar energy, and there's no light bill, no water bill, and I've been benefiting from it a lot, and I think I'm the biggest beneficiary of solar energy.
As a student, I've been in the school hostel since I came. That's my 4 years of stay. I've been in the school hostel. The school hostel too is powered by the solar system. And one of the advantages I get as a result is that I don't pay light bill as a student. There's nothing. You pay a little bit for maintenance. That one is normal, but not as every month you have to pay light bill. If you don't have money, that means you will not be on par. That's one of the advantages as well.
The university has made significant progress. For the time being, the solar panels and the decreased school fees that come with them are assisting in reducing greenhouse gas emissions and mitigating climate change, which is vital for humans, wildlife and ecosystems. A report by Mohammed Nuruddin.
And Ghana is making some headway in the fight against COVID-19 as Academic City University College outdoors less expensive locally made ventilators. A group of students at the Academic City University College has reached that advanced stage in the manufacturing of locally made ventilators to aid in the fight against COVID-19. The milestone achieved by the group is to provide ventilators manufactured with less expensive local materials to health facilities. Dr. Lucy Ejapong is Associate Dean of Engineering, who was speaking at a medical technology fair dubbed Building Local Capacity in Medical Technology, indicated that this will assist in the treatment of other respiratory diseases. We have more in this report.
Ventilators, in the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic, became one of the scarce medical supplies due to the high demand at the hospitals in the wake of rising number of recorded cases. Hospital facilities in the country did not have enough ventilators in treating patients suffering from severe cases of COVID. In view of this challenge, a group of students at the Academic City University College has reached the advanced stage in the design and construction of a low-cost ventilator to assist in the treatment of COVID-19 and other respiratory infections.
There was a worldwide call for rapid ventilators. People were coming up with solutions because everybody wanted to help. And even though in Ghana, yes, we do have ventilators, you see that all our ventilators in Ghana are all imported. There are no ventilators that was actually done in Ghana, for Ghana, by Ghana. So we decided at that time that we were going to come up with a ventilator. At that time, borders were closed, so nobody could go anywhere. So we had to come up with our own version of the ventilator to help assist in any way that we could.
Lucy Ejapong campaigned for the use of homemade devices to build local capacity.
If you look all over the world, there are Ghanaians who are excelling in various companies all over the world. Ghanaians are killing it in different professions. But somehow when we come to our home, it looks like we're not doing as much as we can. It is not because of lack of technical know-how, because we have the knowledge, we know how to do it. It's just the backing and the support. So I'm excited about this particular ventilator, and I'm excited that now in Ghana, people are starting to appreciate more made in Ghana goods, all the way from fashion, and we're learning now to push in medical devices as well, because there's a tendency that people don't trust a brand if it's made in Ghana. But we're here to show that if we've gone thoroughly through this, the rigorous process of testing, validation, you should be able to trust made in Ghana goods.
President of the Academic City University College, Professor Fred Magbagonlori, says the university is willing to start the manufacturing of other devices to boost healthcare delivery.
There are so many problems out there that I'm interested in. I'm interested in why babies die all of a sudden. When I was a kid, I saw many of such events where babies being carried at the back of their parents will all of a sudden get seizures and die. Can you come up with a device that they can put in the cloth so that when the kid's body temperature changes or something, they'll be able to capture that? I think there's a need for that. We need to make needles and syringes here. We import all these into the country.
With this invention, more of low-cost devices will be available in the country. A report by Prince Osuansa read to you.
And I'm sure, ladies, that you're already imagining your hairstyle for Christmas. Well, you have counted the cost, I'm sure, by now. If you haven't, you would have to, of course, budget some extra for your Christmas look. In today's Living Standard series, we head to Mokola, where wig dealers say the inflation bug has actually hit their prices. On the polls, I'm blessed to log on to myjoyonline.com. App says there for you. We'll go on a short break. Next is Let's Talk Showbiz. Stay on the JoyNews channel.